The polished floor of Thompson Carter Architects gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights, mocking Sarah with its perfection. She stood frozen in the middle of the open-plan office, her hands clutching the slim folder that contained the plans she had stayed up all night perfecting. The room was too quiet. She could feel dozens of eyes boring into her back. "Sarah," Mr. Thompson's voice sliced through the air, cold and final. He stood in front of his glass office door, his sharp suit as crisp as his expression was cruel. "Pack up your things. Security will escort you out." The words didn't make sense at first. She blinked at him, her mind scrambling to put together the puzzle pieces. "But what?" "Mr. Thompson, I just submitted the grant proposal, our biggest client." "Which they rejected," he cut her off, his tone merciless. "Your design was too ambitious. You went over budget. And now we've lost them. Do you have any idea what that cost the firm?" Sarah's throat tightened. "We lost them because they wanted cheap, soulless architecture, and I refused to compromise. You agreed to that design." A few colleagues gasped under their breath. Mr. Thompson's jaw ticked. He took a step forward, lowering his voice but not his cruelty. "I agreed because I trusted you. Clearly, that was a mistake. This is a business, Sarah. If you can't separate art from profitability, you don't belong here." His words struck harder than any slap. "Effective immediately," he finished, gesturing toward the two security guards who had appeared, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment. Humiliation washed over her like a tidal wave. She could barely hear the whispers, but she could feel them. She worked so hard for that project. "I thought she was his favorite. She's done for." Her chest constricted as she stuffed her few personal belongings into a cardboard box, each item a reminder of late nights and early mornings spent building her career. The photo of her graduating with honors from MIT. The small bonsai tree she kept on her desk. The lucky pen she used for every client pitch. When she finally stepped into the elevator, her eyes burned but no tears fell. She wouldn't cry here. Not in front of them. The doors slid shut. The last thing she saw was Mr. Thompson turning away, already forgetting her. The bar was dim and smelled of spilled whiskey and old heartbreak. Perfect. Sarah slid onto a stool, her box of office memories now abandoned in the trunk of her car. She ordered the strongest drink on the menu without even asking what it was. "One of those nights, huh?" the bartender said as he poured. "The worst," she admitted, and downed the first drink in one swallow. The burn in her throat felt good, honest. Unlike Mr. Thompson's false praise over the years. One drink turned into 3. Then 4. She stopped counting after that. Her laughter grew louder, her words slurred as she told the bartender and a sympathetic stranger beside her about the firm, the betrayal, the dream that had just shattered. "Here's to being unemployable," she toasted, raising her glass. The stranger chuckled. "You're too pretty to be this drunk over some corporate jerk." "Forget him." "Easy for you to say," Sarah hiccuped. "I gave them everything. Every weekend, every late night. And for what?" By the time she stumbled out of the bar, rain was coming down in sheets. The city lights blurred like smeared paint on canvas. She laughed bitterly at the sky. "Perfect. Just perfect," she yelled into the storm. Her heels clicked erratically on the wet pavement as she wandered without direction. Her phone buzzed, probably her best friend texting to check on her, but she ignored it. She wanted to feel lost. But somewhere between the alley behind the bar and the intersection near the river, her knees buckled. "Great," she mumbled, sitting down right there on the curb. Her hair was plastered to her face, makeup running, her dress soaked through. She closed her eyes. That's when she heard it, the low, smooth purr of an expensive engine pulling up. The car door opened with a soft click. A tall shadow blocked the rain. "Are you all right?" The voice was deep, controlled. Sarah blinked up, barely able to focus. The man standing over her looked unreal, dark suit perfectly tailored, his presence radiating calm power even in the downpour. "Who are you?" she asked, half suspicious, half curious. "Someone who doesn't like leaving people in the rain," he said simply, extending his hand. Normally, Sarah would never have taken a stranger's hand. But tonight, drenched and exhausted, something about him felt safe. She let him pull her to her feet. "Where do you live?" he asked, guiding her toward the car. Sarah mumbled her address, but he frowned. "That's across town. You're in no condition to be traveling alone." "I'm fine," she insisted, though she nearly fell again. "You're not," he said, his voice brooking no argument. "Get in the car." For some reason, she obeyed. The interior was warm, smelling faintly of leather and cedarwood. She sank into the seat, her eyelids heavy. "What's your name?" she murmured. "Alex," he said after a pause. "That's a nice name," she whispered, then promptly passed out. When Sarah woke, the first thing she noticed was the ceiling. High, white, and definitely not her own. She bolted upright. Where? The room was massive, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The bed was so soft it felt like she was sinking into a cloud. Her shoes were gone. Her wet dress had been replaced by a soft silk robe. Panic set in. "What happened?" she whispered to herself. The door opened. Alex stood there, no suit jacket now, just a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Somehow, he looked even more intimidating in daylight. "You're awake," he said calmly. Sarah's heart hammered. "Where am I?" "My place," Alex replied. Her stomach dropped. What did you do to me?" "Nothing," he said quickly, holding up his hands as if to calm a wild animal. "You were soaking wet, nearly unconscious. I had my housekeeper give you something dry to wear." "That's it." Sarah studied his face. He didn't look like he was lying. "You could have just left me," she said finally, her voice small. "I could have," Alex agreed. "But I didn't." There was something in his tone, something that made her feel both unsettled and oddly protected. "I should go," Sarah said, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. "Breakfast first," Alex said mildly, as though he was used to giving orders and being obeyed. "I don't need." "You need something in your system before you collapse again." Her stomach chose that moment to growl. Minutes later, she found herself at a sleek dining table, a steaming plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of her. Alex sat across from her, sipping coffee like a man who had all the time in the world. "You're awfully calm for someone who just rescued a stranger," Sarah said suspiciously. He smiled faintly. "You looked like you needed saving." That caught her off guard. "Look," she said finally, "I appreciate what you did. Really. But I can't just sit here like some damsel in distress." "You're free to leave any time," Alex said. "But take this." He slid a sleek black business card across the table. His name, Alexander Reed, was embossed in silver letters. "If you ever need anything," he said, "call me." Sarah hesitated before taking it. "Why?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "Maybe not," Alex said, meeting her gaze. "But I know what it's like to lose everything and have no one to call." Something about the way he said it made her chest ache. She stood, tucking the card into her purse. "Goodbye, Alex." "Goodbye, Sarah," he replied softly. And as she stepped into the waiting car that would take her home, she realized that no matter how hard she tried, she wouldn't be able to forget him. 3 days had passed since Sarah left Alex's house, but the business card still burned a hole in her purse. She sat on her small apartment couch, surrounded by half-empty coffee mugs and the depressing glow of job search sites. Each rejection email felt like another kick when she was already down. When she saw the card again, its black surface sleek, Alex's name shining in silver, her pulse quickened. "Don't do it," she told herself. "Don't be that girl." But loneliness is a powerful motivator. She grabbed her phone and dialed. "Reed," came the voice on the other end. Deep. Smooth. Sarah froze. Hi. This is Sarah. The girl you, rescued the other night." There was a pause, then a hint of amusement in his tone. "I was beginning to think you'd never call." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "But I could really use someone to talk to." "Just talk." "I know a place," Alex said. "Be ready in an hour." The restaurant was intimate, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. No paparazzi. No loud music. Just soft jazz and the warm glow of candlelight. "This is not a date," Sarah blurted as soon as she sat down. Alex raised an eyebrow. Good to know. I would have brought flowers otherwise. Sarah nearly choked on her water. You're impossible. You called me, he reminded her, that faint smile tugging at his lips. She sighed. I called because I'm lost. I don't know who I am without my job. Then maybe it's time to find out, Alex said, leaning back. You're not your title. You're not your salary. You're Sarah. So who is she? His words landed heavier than she expected. No one's ever asked me that before, she admitted quietly. Then tonight, start answering it, he said. And just like that, over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, they talked. Really talked. About architecture and technology. About ambition and fear. About the nights that keep them awake and the mornings they wish would never come. When Sarah left the restaurant, she felt something she hadn't in days. Hope. The next morning, Sarah woke to her phone blowing up. Ding. 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 Her best friend Mia's name lit up the screen. Mia, girl, why are you all over the internet? Confused, Sarah opened her messages. There it was, a photo of her and Alex at dinner. She was laughing, mid-bite, while Alex was leaning in close, smiling. The caption was brutal. Fired architect caught dining with billionaire CEO, social climber or survivor. Comments poured in beneath it. She's a gold digger. She got fired and immediately found a sugar daddy. She's so lucky, I'd get fired too if it meant that dinner. Sarah's heart pounded. Oh my God, she whispered, dropping her phone. Her laptop was no better. Every gossip site had picked it up. Her LinkedIn profile had tripled the views overnight. When Mia called, Sarah answered in a panic. This is bad, Mia. Really bad. People think I... Sarah, Mia interrupted gently, you can't control what people think. If they want to turn this into a soap opera, let them. You know the truth. But Alex... As if on cue, her phone buzzed again. Alex. She hesitated before answering. Don't panic, Alex said calmly, as though he'd been waiting for this call. I have a PR team handling it. You do. I do, he confirmed. But the question is, do you want to fight this or ignore it? Sarah swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight it. Then ignore them, Alex said. Let them choke on their own theories. Sarah was still reeling from the online backlash when she got an unexpected visitor, Mr. Thompson. He stood outside her apartment door, as polished as ever, holding a forced smile. Sarah, you look, well. She crossed her arms. What do you want? I want to apologize, he said smoothly. The board realized too late that your design was visionary. They've asked me to rehire you. Sarah laughed bitterly. You mean now that I'm newsworthy? His jaw tightened. That has nothing to do with it. Really? She snapped. Because 3 days ago, you treated me like I was nothing. And now you want me back. No, Mr. Thompson. You don't get to fire me publicly and then drag me back when it's convenient. His mask slipped for just a second. You'll regret this, he hissed. No, Sarah said, her voice like steel. I'll thank you. You set me free. What neither of them knew was that a neighbor down the hall had recorded the entire exchange. Within hours, the video was online under the title, Girl Who Got Fired Stands Up to Boss. You have to hear what she said. The internet loved it. Suddenly, Sarah wasn't a gold digger. She was a hero. That night, Alex called her to his penthouse. She found him on the rooftop garden, overlooking the glittering city. You handled Thompson well, he said as she joined him. Sarah gave a humorless laugh. You saw the video? The whole world did. They stood in silence for a moment, the wind tugging at her hair. I need to tell you something, Alex said finally, his voice lower now. Sarah's stomach flipped. What? That night I found you, I was already there. She frowned. Already where? At the bar, he admitted. I was at the corner table. I saw you walk in. Saw you drinking. Saw the way you were breaking. And I couldn't just sit there and watch. You were watching me, she whispered, her pulse spiking. Yes, he said without flinching. And when you stumbled out into the rain, I followed. Not because I wanted to control you. Because I didn't want anything bad to happen to you. Sarah took a step back, struggling to process. Do you know how that sounds? She asked. I know, Alex said softly. But I'd do it again. His honesty shook her more than the confession itself. For days, Sarah couldn't stop replaying Alex's words. He had been watching her, protecting her. But was that romantic or unsettling? She avoided his calls, claiming she needed space. When Mia dropped by, Sarah finally broke down. I don't know if I can trust him, she admitted. First the internet thinks I'm with him for his money. Now I find out he's been watching me. What if I'm just another one of his projects? Mia hugged her. Then figure it out. But don't run away just because you're scared. But Sarah did pull away. She turned down Alex's dinner invitations. She stopped answering his late-night texts. And when Alex finally showed up at her apartment, looking tired but determined, she said the words she'd been dreading. I just need time, she whispered. Alex's jaw tightened, but he nodded. I'll give you time, he said, and left. When the door closed, Sarah slid to the floor, clutching the silver business card in her hand. Because the truth was, no matter how hard she tried to push him away, Alex Reed was already under her skin. As the cafe chose the soundtrack of rain on glass and the soft hiss of steamed milk, Sarah sat by the window, hands curled around a mug she barely sipped, watching umbrellas lift and collapse like breathing creatures along the sidewalk. She had come alone to think. To not think. To be anywhere except inside her own head. The bell above the door chimed. A woman stepped in, rain-kissed and luminous in a cream coat that looked like it could pay off a student loan. She removed oversized sunglasses despite the cloud cover and scanned the room with the cool efficiency of someone who knew people would swivel their necks to look at her, because they did. Sarah? The woman asked when she reached the table. Sarah blinked. Yes. I'm Victoria. Silence arrived like a third person at the table. The name tilted the ground beneath Sarah's chair. Alex is Victoria? Sarah managed, hating the tremor in her voice. Victoria smiled, not cruelly, curiously. There's no possessive in my version of the story. But yes. We were engaged. She sat without asking, as if the chair had been pre-booked for her. I'd like to talk. I don't think we have anything to. We do, Victoria said, gentling her voice. Especially if he hasn't told you all of it. Sarah felt anger scrub fire across her nerves. He told me enough. Did he tell you why we didn't marry? Victoria asked, folding her hands. Her nails were immaculate, a neutral pink that whispered old money. It wasn't a scandal. No cheating. No dramatic betrayal. It was simple. Alex falls fast and he falls hard. He believes in a kind of rescue that feels like fate. And then, when the high wears off, he falls out just as fast. That's a neat little speech. Sarah's heart hammered. Rehearsed. Learned, Victoria said softly. And expensive. She studied Sarah with a gaze that wasn't unkind, just unsentimental. He's drawn to people in crisis. It's his hero narrative. One day he wakes up and wonders why the person he saved still needs saving. And then he leaves. Not cruelly. Never cruelly. He drifts toward the next catastrophe. People change, Sarah said. Maybe he did. Maybe, Victoria allowed, tilting her head. I'm not here to win him back. I'm engaged to someone perfectly boring. Her smile tilted. Boring is underestimated. I'm here because I saw your face in the news and thought, this one is not boring, and she's not a crisis. She's a woman with a spine. She tapped the table twice, deliberate. Be careful, Sarah. You can't save the savior. And if you try, you'll forget who you were before he found you. I didn't ask to be found, Sarah said, a small voice inside her flaring with humiliation and pride and something lonely. I know, Victoria said. That's how it always begins. She stood and slipped a business card from her coat pocket, setting it by Sarah's untouched mug. If you need an honest conversation in 3 months, call me. I won't say, I told you so. I'll just listen. She paused. For what it's worth, he isn't a bad man. He's a kind one. Maybe that's harder. When she left, the door chimed twice, and Sarah watched the cream coat disappear into the rain, a ribbon brushed from a page. For a long minute, she stared at the card between her fingers, the letters crisp, embossed. She slipped it into her wallet beside Alex's. 2 names in silver. 2 futures implied. Her coffee had gone cold. Outside, the street was a watercolor blur. Inside, she couldn't tell if the pressure behind her eyes was a storm system moving east or tears she refused to name. Days turned into a muted symphony of small noises. The hum of her refrigerator at night, the cough of the neighbor downstairs, the soft chime of her phone lighting up with messages she didn't answer. Alex, I booked the restaurant we liked. No pressure. If you want out, say the word. I'll understand. Alex, saw your Thompson video on another news segment. You were brave. Alex, I'm in meetings till late. Text if you need anything. Or nothing. She typed replies, then deleted them until the message box was white and empty, a window she could climb out of if she wanted, but she didn't. Mia refused to be part of the quiet. She brought soup. She brought rom-coms. She brought tough love and a blanket that smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent. You can't ghost yourself, Mia said, flicking the television off mid-plot twist. You're not a haunting. You're a human. I'm trying to not make a mistake, Sarah said. Is hiding the same thing as choosing? Mia countered. You're waiting for the fear to get bored and leave. It won't. At night, Sarah designed buildings in her head because paper felt too permanent. She imagined atriums that spilled with light, stairs that served as amphitheaters, still pools that mirrored skies, a city that asked people to be tender and efficient at the same time. She used to believe structures could teach the body new ways to move through the world. She still did. She just didn't know where to begin again. The headlines slowed. The comments calcified into white noise. Her inbox continued its polite rejection parade, though one message stood out, a firm in another city asking if she'd be open to a conversation. She started, then closed the laptop like it had told a dangerous secret. She dreamed of Alex sometimes. Not dramatically. He was in a kitchen pouring coffee, reading an article, glancing up to ask if she wanted toast. He was a man inhabiting the small domestic spaces of a day, and it was the ordinariness that made her wake with her heart aching like a pulled muscle. One evening, she walked without destination and ended up in front of his building. The doorman recognized her and smiled in a way that said, a woman should not have to announce herself to love. She didn't go in. She stood under an awning and watched the sky print itself in shades of copper and bruised lavender. Then she turned and kept walking. When the call came, it wasn't from him. Sarah. The voice was male, unfamiliar. I work with Alex. He asked me not to bother you, but I thought, never mind. He's leaving tomorrow. An extended trip. No return booked. The world narrowed. Why are you telling me this? Because he's packing like a man holding his breath, the voice said. Because people make mistakes while trying to be decent. He won't ask you for anything. I thought you might want to choose rather than assume. The line clicked dead. Sarah held her phone until it warmed her palm like a living thing. On her kitchen table, 2 cards glinted from her wallet, Victoria's and Alex's, like the sharp edges of a choice. She put them both down and reached for her shoes. Traffic conspired against romance the way reality always does. A construction detour. A delivery truck parked in the lane like it owned it. A bicyclist who believed death was a dare. Please, she whispered to no one and everyone, to the clock on her dashboard, to the red lights, to the possibility that fate wasn't just a story people told when they were afraid of being ordinary. At a yellow light, she made the decision every movie makes and sailed through. The city flashed past in fragments, a florist sweeping petals into a dustpan, a kid with a kite that refused to lift, a couple arguing and laughing at the same time. Sarah gripped the wheel so tightly her knuckles went pale. By the time she reached the airport, her breath was a metronome that had missed its count. She parked badly and ran. The sliding doors sighed open, cool air swallowing her as the departures board unfurled its blue-lit options. Private charters, Terminal East. She followed signs through gleaming corridors that smelled like lemon cleaner and human longing. Security eyed her shoes. She yanked them off. The floor was cold, indifferent. She put them back on and kept moving. "Ma'am, you can't enter without clearance," the attendant at the private terminal desk said, protecting the sanctity of exclusivity with a pleasant smile. "Alex Reed," Sarah panted. I need to, please. I'm not crazy. I just need 5 minutes." "I can't." "Tell him it's Sarah," she rushed, desperation dropping all dignity. "Tell him I'm here to say the thing I should have said when I was too afraid to breathe it." The attendant studied her face and saw what people see when someone has outrun their own fear. She made a small, human choice. 1 moment. Minutes can be acts of violence when they stack up in your chest. Sarah stood with her hands on the counter, palms damp, eyes fixed on a point just over the woman's shoulder where hope might appear. The attendant nodded toward the glass just as a golf cart whirred around the corner. The driver lifted a hand. "Ms. Hale, hop on." The runway stretched like a grammar line across a sentence that could go either way. The cart zipped past gleaming noses of jets, past men in neon vests moving bags like chess pieces. The sun had decided to be glorious again, lighting the plains in brushed silver. "There," the driver said, pointing. A sleek jet idled, its stairs down. And on the tarmac, framed by the geometry of flight and leaving, stood Alex, dark suit, hair tugged by the wind, his posture still and resolute in a way that made her chest spark with ache. "Stop," Sarah said. She didn't wait for a full halt. She leapt off and ran. "Alex!" He turned fast like his name was a wire that someone had yanked. For a beat, everything was background. The engine's hum, the wind, the distant metallic clatter. There was only his face learning her in a new context, here, now, running toward him. "Sarah," he said, the word opening something unguarded in his eyes. She reached him breathless, words scrambling over themselves. "Don't go. Or go, but not like this. I was stupid and scared and listening to ghosts that don't know my name. I pushed you away because I thought distance would be safer than wanting. It wasn't. It's a disaster. I'm a disaster." His mouth curved despite the stakes. "You look like one. In the best way. I don't want to be a story you tell yourself about rescuing people," she said, all at once. "I'm not a project. I don't want to be saved. I want to—" Her voice broke. She regrouped. "I want to stand next to you in the hard parts and the small parts and the boring parts and the parts that feel like we invented the word us. I care about you. I think," she swallowed. "I love you." Wind lifted a strand of her hair and laid it across her cheek. He reached to tuck it behind her ear, his fingers careful, reverent. "I was giving you the space you asked for," he said quietly. "Not leaving because I wanted to. Leaving because I thought it might help you breathe." "I couldn't breathe," she confessed. "I was holding my breath until you answered a text I didn't send." He laughed once, and it knocked water into his eyes. He refused to blink away. "You're terrible at being aloof." "I know." She caught his lapel as if the cloth could anchor her. "Don't punish me for being afraid." "I'm not interested in punishment," he said. "I'm interested in what you just said." "That I love you," she whispered. He nodded like a man receiving coordinates. "That." "Stay," she said. "Or take me with you. Or call me from every airport bathroom where the hand dryer is too loud. I don't care. I just, choose me and I will choose you, every single ordinary day." For a long beat, he looked at her like the future was a horizon line that had just decided to come closer. Then he exhaled a laugh that was almost a sob. "Okay. Okay. Okay," he repeated and pulled her into him. They kissed with the urgency of people who had learned the anatomy of regret and decided not to major in it. Around them, the choreography of flight continued, indifferent and holy. Somewhere, a radio crackled. Somewhere, a ground crewman grinned. When they separated, he rested his forehead against hers. "You ran in those shoes?" "I'd run barefoot if it meant getting here." "Good. Because we're not done running together." The pilot coughed politely at the top of the stairs. "Mr. Reed, our slot." Alex looked up, then back at Sarah. "I can delay a day." "Go," she said, the word tasting different now. "We'll do this the right way." "The right way," he echoed, and for once the right way felt like something they could build themselves. They sat on the stairs of the jet like two kids on a front porch watching a thunderhead roll in from the fields. No audience. No script. Just the important honesty that appears when people stop performing. I didn't start watching you at the bar because I liked the theater of it, Alex said, hands clasped between his knees. I knew the bartender. He told me you'd been fired. I recognized the look. It's the one I wore the night I realized my father's legacy was debt dressed as pride. Sarah turned her head. You never told me that. I didn't tell you a lot of things, he said. Not because I'm hiding. Because I didn't want my history to be the scaffolding we used to hold us up. He breathed out, measured. My teenage years were survival in a nice suit. I learned control like a religion. I liked saving people because it made me feel like I could redo the scene where no one could save me. That doesn't make you broken, Sarah said. It makes you human. Complicated, like buildings with load-bearing secrets. He smiled. That's my favorite metaphor anyone's ever used on me. She bumped his shoulder with hers. You're welcome. He grew serious. Victoria came by my office once, after we ended. She said I treat love like a venture. High risk, high reward, early exit. I hated her for it because it wasn't entirely wrong. But I'm not that man now. Not with you. His voice softened. I don't want an exit. I want a floor plan. Sarah closed her eyes at the phrase, something warm and terrifying breezing through her chest. I can draw one, she said. But it won't be perfect. I don't trust perfect, he said. I trust the thing that can hold weight and still leave room for morning light. She laughed. Watery. See. You're a secret poet with a gross amount of money. He turned, studying her. Let me be clear, before we learn each other wrong. I'm not going to love you like a problem to solve. He paused. Though I reserve the right to fix a leaky faucet if I see one. I won't love you like a charity project, she said. Though I reserve the right to meddle in your office lighting because it's a crime. Deal. They sat in the breeze, the conversation slipping into wider lanes, the confessions lining up like carefully placed beams. I'm scared, she said at last. Not of you. Of what it means to want like this. When the plane leaves, I don't want us to become a story the algorithm tells for us. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket, hesitation making his movements precise. That's why I brought this. He opened a small velvet pouch and slid something into her palm. Silver flashed, a small, exquisite compass pendant, its face a quiet, elegant dial. She stared at it, the world telescoping to a point. Alex. He looked shy for the first time since she'd known him. I had it made the day after you left my apartment. It felt ridiculous and sentimental and I didn't care. Her throat tightened. It's beautiful. He lifted the chain, his fingers trembling the way armor shakes when the knight is a boy anyway. May I? She turned, swept her hair aside. He clasped the chain gently, the weight of it settling at the hollow of her throat like something that had always been waiting there. He circled to face her, his voice a low vow. No matter where you go, you will always be my true north. The word struck clean and bright, a needle snapping to its line. Her eyes stung. She cupped the compass with her hand, feeling its cool surety. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. When you're in hotel rooms with views of cities we haven't learned yet, when you're jet-lagged and angry and the news calls me a thief again, I need you to call me anyway. Not because you've saved me before. Because I am yours, and you are mine, and we're terrible at pretending otherwise. I promise, he said, like a simple sentence could be a cathedral. And you, promise me you'll take the job that scares you and design a building that makes people kinder when they leave than when they entered. Don't make yourself small to fit into us. Bring all of it. I promise, she said, and meant it like breath. The pilot coughed again at the top of the stairs, apologetic. Mr. Reed. Go, she said, laughing softly through tears. Before the FAA sends someone to separate us. He stood, then pulled her up with him, their hands a knot. I'll be back in 2 days. 3 at most. I'll count wrong on purpose so it feels shorter. He kissed her forehead, a benediction, then her mouth, a claim that wasn't ownership, only truth. When he boarded, He looked back twice. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, fingers on the compass, watching him disappear into the fuselage like a closing parenthesis that promised an opening one soon. The jet lifted, a clean line written across the blue. Sarah stayed until it became a punctuation mark in the distance. Then she turned, the runway suddenly a road. The city greeted her with that peculiar warmth it reserves for the returning and the decided. She drove back through streets that now felt legible, same signs, new readability. At home, she set her phone on the counter and it immediately buzzed. Alex, wheels up. The pilot says the weather is ours. Text me one truth from your day while I'm gone. I'll collect them like postcards. Sarah, truth number 1, I ran in heels and didn't die. Truth number 2, I love you. Truth number 3, I'm going to build something that changes the temperature of a street by 3 degrees because shade is justice. Alex, marry me. Alex, kidding. Not kidding. Too soon. You get the idea. Alex, tell me more about shade as justice. She laughed alone in her kitchen, not lonely. She typed until his messages paused, airborne silence. Then she opened her laptop and pulled up the starred email from a firm in another city. Subject, Principal Architect, Urban Renewal Initiative. Body, we've seen your work, including your brave confrontation. We think you understand cities as organisms, not machines. Would you consider leading a project? Her pulse climbed. She clicked reply. I'd love to talk. She sent it. Then she opened a blank document and titled it True North because she could be forgiven for being obvious today. She sketched a plaza with a canted canopy angling light into a public library entrance, water channeled into shallow rills where children could run their fingers and learn the math of motion. She lined the periphery with trees that could endure heat and gift shadow. Benches that were not hostile architecture but invitations. Ramps that treated wheelchairs like choreography, not inconvenience. Her phone buzzed again hours later. Mia, alive? Did you pull a rom-com? Sarah, I sprinted through an airport and kissed a man by a jet. So yes. Bring popcorn. I'll tell you everything except the parts one planned to keep for us. Mia arrived with exactly too much popcorn and precisely the right amount of nosy questions. They sprawled on the floor like teenagers. When Sarah showed Mia the compass, she let herself be soft enough to cry while her friend hooped and then pretended not to wipe at her eyes. That man is trouble, Mia said, affectionate. He is, Sarah said. The kind that makes you better at being yourself. After Mia left, the apartment felt quiet in a different key. Full, not empty. Sarah showered, braided her hair, and slipped into bed, the compass cool against her skin. Sleep came with a gentle hand. At 3:07 a.m., her phone vibrated across the nightstand. She groped for it, smiling before she'd read a word. Alex, truth for my day. Halfway across the world, I looked out at a dark ocean and thought it looked like your hair when the wind has its way. Also, I told a room of men who measure things incorrectly that efficiency, without human, is just a spreadsheet with a god complex. They stared. I didn't blink. I owe you for that phrase, shade is justice. It rewired something. Sarah, truth for mine. I said yes to a call about a job that terrifies me. Also, I bought running shoes that won't try to kill me on a runway. Alex, buy 2 pairs. We've got ground to cover. She fell back asleep smiling. In the morning, the weather poured sun through her curtains. She made coffee, opened her window to let the day in, and sat with her notebook. She wrote a list called Promises We Actually Keep. We will tell the truth when it's uglier than silence. We will not make ourselves smaller to fit inside the other's pocket. We will call from airport bathrooms and kitchens and sidewalks. We will fix the leak. We will not try to fix the other. We will remember, true north is not a place. It is a person holding a compass with our name in it. By afternoon, she had an interview time. By evening, she designed 2 variations of the plaza canopy and texted them to Mia with the caption, Pick your fighter. Her phone flashed a different notification, a news alert headlined, From Fire to Fierce, Architect Sarah Hale redefines resilience, the kind of headline that once would have turned her stomach. She closed it. She didn't need the internet to narrate her anymore. She needed the sound of Alex's voice across time zones, which arrived just as the street lamps blinked awake. "Tell me about your day," he said, the line making a bridge out of distance. She did. She told him about the plaza and the canopy and the way wind moves like music if you give it instruments. He told her about a meeting that smelled like old cigars and new money, about a man who had tried to mistake arrogance for vision, about the joy of telling such a man no. When the call ended, it did not feel like an ending. It felt like a comma between two clauses that were learning how to sing when laid side by side. She stood at the window, the city soft and glittering, the compass a quiet weight against her pulse. Somewhere high in the sky, a jet carved a line and disappeared into it. She lifted a hand and traced the air like it might remember her. The promise had already begun, not an oath shouted over roaring engines, but the kind you make on a stair when the world keeps moving and you decide to move with it, together. And if the future was a long road stitched with departures and arrivals, then tonight had given them both a map, and a north that didn't waver. Sarah's new job offer wasn't just a promotion, it was a chance to rewrite the story of who she was. The firm wanted her to lead a citywide architectural renewal project, a multi-year effort to turn abandoned lots into community spaces, pedestrian-friendly streets, and sustainable housing units. It was the dream job she hadn't even realized she'd been waiting for. She met Alex at their favorite rooftop spot to tell him. The city glowed beneath them, the skyline glittering like a living promise. "They want me to move there," Sarah said, nervous. "At least for the first phase of the project. A year, maybe longer." Alex didn't hesitate. "Take it." Her breath caught. "Just like that. No hesitation. No, what about us?" He smiled, stepping closer until the wind tugged at both their hair. "Sarah, I didn't fall in love with you so you could build your life around me. I fell in love with you because you build things that make the world better. Go. I'll book a jet, or we'll meet halfway, or I'll learn to live on video calls." Sarah laughed through a tear that slipped free. "You make it sound easy." "It won't be easy," Alex said softly, brushing his thumb over her cheek. "But the good things never are." When she kissed him, it was a promise as strong as the compass resting against her heart. News of Sarah's new role spread fast, faster than she expected. One morning, as she prepared for her first design presentation in the new city, she received an email from Mr. Thompson. Subject: "Let's talk." Her fingers hovered over the delete button. Instead, she hit reply. "We can talk. One time. My office, noon tomorrow." Mr. Thompson arrived dressed in his usual navy suit, but his arrogance had dulled. He sat across from Sarah in her new, sunlit office, looking strangely out of place. "You've done well for yourself," he said finally. "I suppose I misjudged you." "You did," Sarah said evenly. "But that's not why we're here. You wanted me back once before. Now you want what? A partnership? A headline?" Mr. Thompson shifted in his chair. "You were one of the best we had. I wanted to offer you a chance to come back, at a higher position. A controlling stake." Sarah leaned back and smiled, slow and deliberate. "You think you can buy back the person you broke? I don't want your firm, Mr. Thompson. I don't want your building. You taught me something valuable, that I don't need your approval to know my worth." His jaw clenched. "You really think you can survive without?" "I'm not surviving," Sarah said, her voice like steel. "I'm thriving. And you're sitting in my office." He blinked at that, and for once said nothing. "You may go now," Sarah finished, dismissing him with the same cool professionalism he had once used to fire her. When he left, Sarah stood at the window, breathing deep. She wasn't angry. Not anymore. Just free. Months later, Sarah's project had become a citywide success story. Articles called her the architect of hope. Her team celebrated with champagne in the plaza she had designed, where children now ran through fountains she had fought to install. That night, Alex took her to a quiet restaurant that overlooked the plaza. The lights shimmered on the water, turning the night into a mirror of stars. He poured her a glass of wine, then stood. "Alex," she said, surprised, as he walked to her side of the table. "Sarah," he said, voice steady but his hand slightly trembling, "I have spent the last year learning what love looks like when it has to stretch across time zones and conference calls. And it turns out, it looks like this." He knelt, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a ring as elegant and thoughtful as the compass necklace. "Marry me," Alex said simply. "Not because I saved you, not because you need me, but because we keep choosing each other. Every day. Over and over." Sarah's throat tightened as tears welled. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." When he slipped the ring on her finger, the plaza's fountains erupted behind them, as though the city itself was celebrating. The wedding was small but breathtaking, a lush garden venue overlooking the water. Strings of lights crisscrossed above, glowing like captured fireflies. Sarah walked down the aisle in a gown that moved like water, the compass necklace shining against her skin. Alex waited for her beneath an arch of white roses, his expression soft and certain. When they exchanged vows, Sarah's voice didn't shake. "You found me on the worst night of my life," she said. "But loving you taught me that I'm more than my worst day. You didn't save me, you reminded me I could save myself." Alex's vow was simple and strong. "You are my true north," he said. "And no matter where life takes us, I will never lose the way back to you." As they kissed, the small crowd of family and close friends erupted in applause. Mia cheered the loudest. The epilogue fast-forwarded 2 years. Sarah stood in the center of a completed community plaza, this time not as an architect presenting plans, but as a mother, holding a toddler with Alex's dark hair and her bright eyes. The fountains danced. Children laughed. And Alex approached from across the plaza, grinning, holding a picnic basket. "You know," he said, kissing her cheek, "this is still my favorite place you've ever built." Sarah smiled, watching their little boy toddle toward the water. "Mine too. Because this time, we built it together." As the sun set, casting the plaza in gold, Sarah touched the compass around her neck. Her life had once ended in an office with a firing, a humiliation. But this was the beginning she never knew she needed. The final image was of Sarah, Alex, and their child sitting together on the steps of the plaza, watching the lights flicker on one by one, a picture of love that had survived every storm and come out stronger. Because sometimes, the night you lose everything is the night you are quietly being led toward the best beginning of all. The end.